AI Days, and today we'll be focusing on workforce readiness. We'll be starting this morning with a panel focused on navigating the AI integrated workforce. My name is Marquis McGriff. I am the Assistant Director for Career Pathways and Artificial Intelligence. I work in the Career Connections Center, C3, right on the floor under us. Hopefully all of you or our students in the room have had the opportunity to stop by. If you haven't, please know that we are here for you to provide you any support in planning your post-secondary plans. With all that being said, we will start our panel discussion this morning. We're joined by three esteemed panelists who I will allow to begin by introducing themselves.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us to talk about AI and workforce readiness. We're very excited to be here. My name is Angel Iverson, and I am the interim director for the Career Connection Center. We have been involved in the AI conversation for a few years now in thinking about the future of work, and that is why we have invested in positions such as Marquis's and working with the AI2 Center and working with industry and really listening to them for what their needs are. As the #2 career center in the country, a lot of folks are looking to us and what are we doing? What are we hearing from industry? How are we supporting our students and our campus partners for these conversations to serve our entire university and help the workforce for the future? So I look forward to sharing my thoughts with you today.
Hello, good morning. My name is Damon Woodard. I am the director for the Florida Institute for National Security, which focuses on applied artificial intelligence to solve various problems in national security. I'm also a professor in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering.
Hi, everyone. My name is Avik Batra. I'm a managing director with Accenture, which is a large consulting firm that provides professional services to the top 2,000 organizations globally, in both the private sector and public sector organizations. I am one of our public sector generative AI lead for Accenture. So my mandate is to help grow our portfolio with providing generative AI services for state governments, local governments, higher education institutions, and nonprofits. So nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, everybody. So we will go to our first question. And the first question is, what are the key skills and attributes that professionals need to adapt to and thrive in AI-integrated workplaces? And whoever would like to begin.
I can start with answering that question. I think that's a great question as a career center that we're paying attention to, right? And listening to the industry partners. We have over 2,000 companies that come to this campus every year, for example, and work with thousands more from a distance. And I thought about a survey that we worked with the College of Engineering to launch to industry partners a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago or so, and got a lot of data from across the industry sectors. Who here is outside of a technical degree? Okay, so we have a few of you in the room. So we were engaging folks even outside of the technical fields, asking them what skills are you seeking when you think about incorporating AI into your pathways in your organization, whether it was tech or non-tech. And those enduring human skills, we're still focusing on a lot because that's what we were hearing from them. And I'm going to let Damon and Avik talk about kind of the technical skills. But when you think about the non-technical skills, we heard pervasively from them that the #1 thing is critical thinking and problem solving. You need that across all disciplines and platforms. The second thing we heard was communication. That's still going to be key through 50 to 80% of your job is these non-technical skills, even when you have these strengths in the technical skills. The third thing we heard was adaptability, having to really be able to work across systems. And then the fourth thing that we heard in that ranking was being able to work with diverse teams, because you're still having to synthesize information, work with team partners, still having to critically evaluate the data and the output. So those are some of the skills that you think about, but then kind of the attributes and the work performance, when you think about functions, you think about project management, think about data analytics, the ability to effectively critically think what is going to be my input so that I have an effective output, And all of those enduring skills still help with these AI kind of functions within organizations. So that's what we are still focusing on as a career center, in addition to how our academic partners and certifications and credentials, kind of pairing those together to make a well-rounded applicant for the future of work.
Okay, Angel took my answer.
Oh, sorry.
You covered most of what I wanted to talk about, but I think one other thing that should be included is also an intuitive understanding of AI and the various methods in general, because there's a rush to apply artificial intelligence just about any problem. And I think having an intuitive idea of how the AI works and what are its limitations would help you decide whether or not applying AI to this specific problem makes any sort of sense. So everything that Angel said, and in addition, intuition and intuitive understanding of the various AI technologies like generative AI, reinforcement learning, so on and so forth. You don't have to understand all of the technical details of it, but having a general idea of how it works and what are the limitations, I think, would be extremely helpful.
So I agree with everything that's been said so far, for sure. I think what's happened, especially artificial intelligence has been around since the 50s, right? Everyone knows that, but it's been very inaccessible, meaning a lot of work needs to go into standing up these programs. You need to have the right technical skills. What happened in November 2022 with ChatGPT is that it became accessible to the masses. So everything that's been said is correct. I think the message is regardless of what field you go into, regardless of what function you are going to be working for an organization, or if you start your own business, you need to figure out how you're going to use AI. Accenture started a business service group 7 years ago called Accenture Digital. That function doesn't exist anymore because every part of our business is digital. And every part of a client's business should be digital, right? So we've embedded digital methodologies, concepts, technologies to strategy and consulting, to technology, to how we run and operate other businesses. AI, in my opinion, is the same way. You got to figure out how we're going to be using it in the right ways, in the risk-averse ways, and the proper methods in each of your areas. But in my opinion, learning how to embrace it is going to be very critical in your careers, because we, as Accenture, are trying to figure out how to upskill and transform more than 100,000 people right now to use it so that we can go sell services to clients, right? So I agree with having critical thinking as a key aspect of what skills you should be thinking about, because the other dynamic is that there are so many of these technologies. By the time you're upskilled on it, there's a better one out there. So being able to adapt, be able to use some of these technologies is also going to be key.
Thank you, everybody. So our second question would be, how can individuals future-proof their careers in a work world where AI is becoming increasingly prevalent? Whoever would like to start?
So I would say the first one, touching on the previous question a little bit, I think improving soft skills, in particular communication, written and oral, and leadership skills. Also, I think a person would have to invest in continuous learning. You can't think that you're going to graduate with all that you need in your career and you're never going to have to learn something new. You should invest in continuous learning, because the technology in AI is changing so quickly. It's really difficult to keep up. So invest in continuous learning. And lastly, stay updated on industry trends, so you have an idea of what's coming down the pipe. A lot of what's going on in business is a result of the technology just becoming available to everyone so quickly. So having an idea of what's coming in your particular industry will be extremely helpful in allowing you to prepare so you're not blindsided.
It's funny, Damon and I are on the same wavelength because I exactly had those words to keep up with industry trends. And I was thinking maybe I could piggyback off that with saying, how do you do that, right? What does that mean? Especially as a student, how do you have access? I think looking at articles that are out there, Forbes, Fortune, industry is sharing what is happening with them, looking at LinkedIn blog posts, articles, conversations that are happening in feeds and forums, also attending webinars. For example, we have a partnership with NVIDIA on this campus, and all students, faculty, staff can log in to their webinars and hear what is happening in their space and listen to their CEOs and their directors directly. And so our other organizations, such as Accenture, having those conversations that you can join in on, that will help future-proof your career so that you know how to adapt and what to pay attention to. I think the second thing I thought about is choosing a specialization that you're really kind of diving deep into when you think about AI. Is it the generative AI? Is it the data analytics? I don't know all the terms, but what is the space that you're going to be in this AI space to really help give you that competitive edge? Because we know that there's so much and it's continually evolving. It's hard to stay on top of. So how can you deep dive in one space to really make you have expertise?
Can you guys hear me? Okay. I don't know if I can add anything else that's been said. I think we're all on the same wavelength here. Continuous learning is key, right? Like, I've been with Accenture for 15 years. I have gone through training. I have both mandatory and voluntary and out of my own interest, I would say yearly, right? And it is to future-proof your career. What I was doing 15 years ago, I am not doing anything near that right now, right? So it is very important to stay up with what's happening in the market, what's happening in the industry you serve, what's happening, in terms of how do you keep your skills sharp so that, you stay relevant. I mean, it is a journey. It's not, I graduate and I'm done. It's not like that at all.
Thank you, everybody. It's interesting to see how AI is impacting all industries, and our tech students and our non-tech students have opportunities to be sure that they're preparing themselves to be ahead of the curve and not behind. Our third question would be, are there any specific challenges or ethical considerations associated with the integration of AI in the hiring process and workforce that professionals should be aware of? Whoever would like to start.
I can start. In the hiring process or in general in the hiring process? Okay, so there's definitely a dark side right now, right? I mean, people don't know 100% how at least generative AI is going to be used, right? There's going to be, I think what people don't fully understand is that if you use some of these technologies that exist publicly and is available, when you interact with them, they use your data, right? Like you feed it whatever prompts or whatever questions, they own it, right? It's part of their service agreements, et cetera. So the only thing I would tell you is organizations such as Accenture, we believe in 100% transparency, right? We have not said when you interview with us, when we recruit you, use generative AI to, write your cover letter, to write your resume. Like, there are models out there that can start to sniff that out now, right? And I think, our HR teams are using those models, right? So we are not saying because the technology exists today, use it to get through the recruiting process. We still want to know who you are. The human is still important in the entire situation, right? We need to understand who we are bringing into the firm. I'm not saying that you won't be using it as a part of the job. I'm not saying, don't use it to help, but make sure what you're presenting to yourself, presenting as yourself is your authentic self, right? Because these models are not perfect yet. There is going to be, as this stuff gets regulated, as higher ed institutions, as employers try to figure out what policies they're going to put out in place, they will they will stick to those policies.
Yeah, we're definitely paying attention to those in kind of the fields that we're in and the professional associations that have some influence with legislation, for example. The survey that I was referencing earlier of the hundreds of the industries, companies that we engage with related to AI, about 40 of them said they're using AI in their recruiting practice right now, and 70% said they'll be using it within the next 2 to 5 years. So they may be using it right now. That many, and you think about it helps with efficiency, but does it always help with effectiveness when you think about the ethics? Because, for example, if the parameters are too tight in the algorithm, is it going to overlook qualified individuals? We've been having conversations as career services professionals across the field. What are the implications when you think about video interviewing, for example, in the AI algorithms and parameters that are set into place when you think about students with disabilities or people with color, thinking about how the systems are able to read eye expression, eye contact and facial expressions and the lighting. And so there's some considerations there, thinking about resumes and the applicant tracking systems. It helps with efficiencies because companies such as Accenture, they get thousands and thousands of resumes. But if your resume is not formatted well for that system to read it, and it hasn't been had the right inputs for reading the algorithm, are you going to be understood as a correct applicant? So it has benefits in that it can remove some of the human biases, but then there may be the technical biases if it's not set up in the right way by these organizations. And that's where that pairing that we talked about of these human skills working with technology is so important, is are these recruiters having the critical thinking about how their technology is working in this hiring process, and is it working right for them to meet the diverse needs that their organization has when you think about the skill sets and the talent that the organization is seeking.
Well, just to piggyback a little bit off of the bias part of it, this is a major problem in the area of artificial intelligence, because an artificial intelligence system is not being programmed to do anything. It's basically learning from the data. So if there's bias in the data to begin with, no matter what you do, there will be bias in the system. So even though the system might perform well in terms of what it's trying to achieve, like to hire the most qualified applicants, to do that, it may not do that in a fair way. So although the system may be efficient, it may not be fair. So this is something that you have to think about. We've mentioned a couple of times generative AI in particular. This is one of, in my opinion, the worst when it comes to things such as explainability. So in certain situations, you can't just make the decision. You need to justify it and explain why you made that decision. Currently, the technology, generative AI, and some other AI systems as well, any deep learning-based AI system, there's a lack of explainability or transparency. So it can make a decision that seems correct, but it can't tell you why it made it. Mm-hmm. Now, that may be acceptable for certain situations, but in other situations that may impact a person's life, it's not acceptable. And last is basically a challenge of over-reliance on AI. So a lot of individuals who are using AI, just because of all of the headlines that are coming out about how great it is, they start to accept what the AI is saying without really double-checking. There have been a number of cases, I hate to keep picking on generative AI, but there have been a number of cases in terms of generative AI where they have what they call, the technical term is hallucinations. Mm-hmm. So basically, the AI is saying things that are blatantly not true, okay? So you have to keep that in mind as well. So I think being a little bit skeptical when you're dealing with an AI system. Don't think of, everything that the AI system says is what you should do. There should be someone double checking.
Thank you, everybody. Our next question is, what are some emerging careers or job roles that have been created as a direct result of AI advancements? And we'd like to start with Angel for this question, and if anybody else would like to dive in afterwards.
Yes, that makes sense since we process thousands of jobs every week. I wrote some of them down. I wanted to bring them today that we're seeing, but also some statistics. In working with some other consulting firms, I was about to say, and some of the data and worldwide information that's out there, I thought this was mind-blowing, the statistic that 65% of children entering elementary school will work in new job types that don't exist yet. And so that is us talking about this adaptability and this consistent lifelong learning, right? And we're seeing jobs that we don't know what they are, and we're having to learn about them to help prepare our students coming in the system. But think about that happened 20 years ago or even 15 years ago with social media jobs. And you're like, wait, what is this related to social media or the internet? And really preparing for these jobs that you didn't know what they were. And so some things that we're seeing are prompt engineers. So talking about how are we having really critical input to have great output. Analytics translators, computer vision engineers, meta AI residencies, AI product managers, performance optimization engineers for AI. But when you think about the careers that it's impacting quite a bit, or actually other jobs, I'll talk about that because I think we're talking about industry later, but we're seeing some new job types exist such as ethicist. So we just talked about this ethical job, right? So companies are really needing to pay attention to, okay, how am I keeping the social factors in consideration, the political factors, the ethical factors in consideration when I'm working with AI, these conversations that they're having, that they're needing to have that human component to evaluate these things. Analytics translators, still needing to have sales and marketing for these AI positions, needing to have creative writers when you're thinking about designing the chatbots and kind of the personalities that go into these systems. So we're seeing kind of the evolution of jobs in both the technical space, which you would commonly think, but we're seeing in the non-technical space too.
I agree with everything that was said in terms of what jobs are being created. I would also, and I know not 100% of the question, I would also say every job is being disrupted right now. Accenture has done a lot of research on what today's roles are happening, and my job, everyone's job is being completely disrupted in terms of what is coming, in terms of how AI can be used, should be used, and responsibly used, right? I hope there's no lawyers in the room, but like, we did research. There's going to be 100% disruption in the legal field. 100% disruption. Just food for thought, right? So when it comes back to continuous learning, it's really important how we keep your skills sharp to be able to handle these roles that are going to be coming through so that everyone stays relevant.
Thank you for that. It's very interesting as I think about, I'm the only person in the C3 who has artificial intelligence in the name of the position, but all of my colleagues were all using AI on our day-to-day, ChatGPT, Quincia, so it's certainly having an impact on all of us. Our fifth question, and I'll direct this to Avik. How can students and early career professionals prepare for these new AI-driven career paths?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched upon some of that already. I think it's really important to stay curious, right? I mean, if one thing that we haven't said yet, there's a lot of these technologies out there. There's new technologies that come out every day. Don't be afraid to, figure out what it means and how to get skilled upon it. If you have access to free, webinars by NVIDIA, and whatever it may be on campus today, take full advantage of that. I'm being 100% serious because I still draw on experiences I've had from my college experience that subject matter was completely different, but you figure out ways how that was relevant at that time to what you're dealing with in your job today. So staying curious, making sure that you do have some sort of continuous learning. I don't want to say plan, but like priority and figuring out how to stay relevant, and then just soft skills are going to be even more incredibly important. Like I cannot stress. I think the pandemic brought to light a little bit on what it means when folks are not together, when they're not being coached by people in the room. we're seeing that trickle into the workforce now over years, and it is, regardless of what profession you're going to be in, having context of what you're talking about from a subject matter perspective, being able to have a conversation with somebody in a polite, professional, cordial manner. These are things that people in the professional world will remember versus what you did for them. It's just my experience.
In thinking about some additional tangible ways that maybe you can start to prepare as professionals, is thinking about how to gain applied learning and hands-on experience. So what are some of the ways that you can do that? Internships, we all know about that, but there are also micro internships. How do you dabble in these spaces 20 hours, 40 hours at a time with organizations and companies for their needs? There's specific projects that you can do that companies have sponsored, such as there's a platform called Forage that you will have access to starting next week at the Career Center, and you kind of see, okay, I want experience with kind of automation in this space, and you do a 2-hour project. There's also research-based projects, signing up for certain courses, credential certifications, but I think we've been talking about this continuous learning. Are you dabbling yourself in these platforms like Bing and ChatGPT, and are you Canva? Are you diving in deep to see what that looks like and how to apply it, and learning through the YouTube videos and the webinars and getting experience with it yourself? I think carving out the time to do that is important.
I'll just add a little bit to that. I think the continuous training is important, and I think especially for the students here, I think making use of your professors as much as possible to learn as much as they know right now, to kind of give you an idea, because we have a very broad view of what's going on in the space. And finally, I would suggest perhaps to look for mentors that will, I guess, increase your learning exponentially, to kind of give you an idea of what to do next. Because I'm listening to all of the things that we're telling you, and I think it can seem a bit overwhelming just to put all of the responsibility on you and say, hey, you have to do this, you have to do that. I think having a good group of mentors as well, who maybe have some experience in some of the spaces that you're planning on going into, I think that would be extremely helpful in advancing your knowledge of the landscape.
Can I? Please. Damon, you talked about mentors, and I think that that's fantastic. And so do you have suggestions for folks to find mentors outside of professors? I know that there's ways that we can help connect through Gator Connect or Gator Network, which is an online resource that our students, faculty, and staff have access to of all of the alumni to build connections, and we all know about LinkedIn, but are there other suggestions? Not to put you on the spot.
Oh. That's a good one.
Like associations that may be out there to get involved with?
I think perhaps maybe some of the student groups that are already perhaps doing some work there, we're meeting with more senior students. I think that would be helpful, but what I was thinking was someone with much more experience. So, yeah, nothing comes to mind.
No, that helps. I think the Gator Network has the alumni that are actually professionals in the field, so you can send messages and connect in that way. And then LinkedIn direct messages when you're talking about people that are more experienced in the field. And I'm sure there's professional associations that exist with AI. I'm sure you're involved in maybe a couple, or?
Yeah, I would even, maybe a little bit more outside of AI. I've actually found getting involved with nonprofits, even in the college level, like I'm involved with a few nonprofits now. I have met the most incredible people through those organizations, and not just from an AI perspective, from a life perspective. I agree with everything that's said. Like the onus, although we're all saying that, like, you own your career, you own your education, ask for help, right? I have been with this firm that I work with now for 15 years. There's not a day I haven't made a mistake or ever asked for help, right? I have experience, right? And so you're gonna, whether it's in the professional world, in the community, you're gonna find people that, genuinely want to help. Take them up on that offer. Like everyone is, we believe in a concept called shared success, right? The community doesn't thrive unless the people thrive. People thrive unless, don't thrive unless, society thrives. It's just like, the world is a circular thing, and AI is going to be a tool that helps a lot of it, accelerates portions of it, but there are fundamentals that already exist to lean on. I mean, that's how I feel.
Thank you, everybody. I agree. We should never underestimate the value of mentorship.
Yeah.
We're going to start our next question by directing it to Angel. What industries are most likely to see significant growth in AI-related jobs in the near future?
In some of our research and conversations, right, outside of kind of when you think about tech in general and some of the ones that are adopting it traditionally, you think about the automotive industry, right? We've seen more automotive industries recruiting here than we have since I've been here in the last 15 years. And think about Tesla and these automated self-driving vehicles. And so that industry, you think about healthcare and biosciences, and how is it supporting kind of finding pharmaceuticals and things, and all of this different data related to healthcare. Think about the creative sciences, impacting it there. We even use it in our Career Center AI when you think about Canva and designing our graphics and all of these things. So it's really disrupting that space, and we're having a lot of conversations there. When you think about education and finance and data analytics and the information and the training. So we've been having conversations that it's affecting all spaces, but those are some of the ones that we've seen kind of rise to the top outside of the traditional tech spaces.
I wish I knew every single industry. I'm going to name a few, but the theme with some of these industries are the ones that generally have workforce problems, right? And what I mean by that is there's not enough capacity to handle the work that these organizations are dealing with, right? So state and local government, for example, is in the upper quartile of how AI is going to disrupt that industry, right? Not many people want to work in state and local. The work has exponentially grown since the pandemic for how state and local governments need to operate. Automotive industries, if you think about manufacturing and supply chain, right? Like, with the trade wars that started before the pandemic, like there's a shift happening in the market on where some of those jobs are going. In general, when we look at the market, it's okay. What industries have general workforce problems, and how can we help employ or deploy these AI models or technologies, whether it's generative AI or RPA, right? Like it's the full spectrum, and you're going to see some of that, through, manufacturing, supply chain, all that kind of stuff. So.
Thank you. So our final curated question is, how is AI being utilized in the recruitment and hiring process, and what are the potential benefits and drawbacks? Whoever would like to start.
I think we kind of talked about this earlier in talking about some of the ethics with AI. And so I was talking about some of the usages and how it helps with efficiency. I think that's one of the biggest benefits, is you may hear back from organizations quicker or have response times. And thinking about previous times, it would take many months possibly to process thousands of resumes and go through interviews. And now that process may be expedited a bit. And when you think about more of the video interviewing, we're seeing that all of the time, how that may be the first round where AI is processing first round interviews. We've even done those as a career center. The university has that tool to do that, where AI is supporting us with first round interview processing, skills assessments. Another benefit is it may help remove human bias when you think about the interviewing process and going through the recruitment process, where a human recruiter may not be able to have a bias based upon the name that's on the top of the resume, or potentially an organization that that the person is involved with and they may not have a personal affiliation with. So it helps remove some of those biases.
One particular application that I'm aware of is basically using video interviewing to do not only just the interviewing, but also do people analytics to determine whether or not you would be successful at that particular company. Kind of like for the football fans in the audience, where you're doing data analytics on a baseball player's swing and how many times they did this or did that. So AI is now being used to create basically a complete view of the potential applicant, and based upon that information is your hiring is being decided. So one of the bad things that I can see kind of like with using AI for hiring is that now you're not just trying to present yourself as the best applicant to a person, but now you're having to almost beat the AI. It's almost like a video game where you have to give the AI what it wants in order for you to appear as you want to appear to get this position. So it's almost like gamifying the job process a bit. So that's one of my worries about using AI for hiring. I think I'm a bit older, so I believe in the old-fashioned way where you have face-to-face interviews and you get to talk to the person, and perhaps you may have to deviate from typical interview questions to try to get an idea of who that person is, and I think you kind of lose that when you start using AI. So, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to add on to the gamifying piece that he mentioned is at the university, we're trying to figure out how to support students with kind of playing the game. And so that's where Marquis, he mentioned Quincia, is the AI tool that we have paid for as an institution to help students kind of review their resume with this AI system or practice these interviews with the AI algorithms and platforms to see, okay, this is you understanding how it works and potentially trying to get ahead of it when you're in the real deal, and get through these systems, and doing workshops talking about what does AI in the interviewing process like and hiring process look like? What does it mean for you? And so we're trying to get it, and I agree that it's like there's all of these new nuances and complexities that you have to learn.
Yeah, some of the conversations, Accenture's been having with, human resources organizations that, conduct interviews or creating interviews. We're seeing folks testing out these tools, but what we're seeing that how folks are using it from a recruitment standpoint is with use cases that are more in the co-pilot category versus helping them with the recruiting versus allowing the AI model to do the interview. So what I mean by that is, like, we have clients that are using models to write job profiles, right? That was a very laborious task sometimes, and write job profiles based upon historical jobs that were hired and tweaking it based upon push it through a model. You alluded to the fact regarding response times when you do apply for a job. We're seeing clients take that seriously, and using AI models to help them respond to candidates quicker, faster, and help the recruiters sift out quicker and faster what candidates would be viable. And then the third thing is during the actual interview process, we're seeing some clients, instead of being tier one in terms of interviewing with an AI model, actually an AI model participating in an interview, so that the recruiter obviously transparently when talking to the candidate, the AI model is listening to the conversation. So what happens then after is that instead of the recruiter doing the paperwork in a laborious manner, the AI model then quickly summarizes the interview, provides a recommendation based upon the interview, and then the recruiter takes a look at it, agrees, disagrees, tweaks, and then moves on to the next candidate, so they're able to throughput quicker from a capacity standpoint. So that's what we're seeing in the market right now. I agree with everything that's been said, that all these tools are going to become more integrated, but there is a reluctance to let the hounds out quickly on that, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for your responses this morning. So now we will have questions from the audience.
Does anyone have a question? Anything burning questions? Oh, we got one in the back.
Thank you. I totally agreed what Mr. Woodward said, that AI could bring efficiency, but might also bring unfairness. That's what you said. And so, for example, like as a graduate student, I would like to look for jobs. And when I apply for jobs, I might have to go through the video interview process before I can actually get to the face-to-face interview. However, me as a person, I failed all the video interviews. So for companies who I can just directly have face-to-face interview or just walk in to drop my resume, I pass all those interviews. And for doing the video interview, I failed. Just like what you also mentioned, you prefer face-to-face interviews and the old-fashioned way. So what would you think that organizations like schools or companies can do to make this recruiting process more fair while AI is not that developed and mature during this changing period?
I think perhaps breaking the interview, the entire job recruitment process apart in sections where maybe you can use AI for things where you're analyzing resumes and identifying potential candidates, but reserving the interview part for humans and humans alone. Now, that may not be feasible for certain companies. But I don't believe someone should be necessarily completely eliminated from consideration because of a video interview. Maybe you could flag it and say that, okay, this person didn't do as well in the video interview, but we're still going to interview that person. But I'm saying this from a very idealistic position, because I'm not a CEO of a company, and I'm sure they deal with a lot more applicants than I probably would deal with. So I think this is probably going to be one of the major challenges for job seekers going in the future. A lot of time is probably going to have to be spent in improving your interview skills, not just to impress a human, but also to impress the AI. I can't see any way around it, because in some ways companies have no choice. The number of applicants is just growing. So I think the best that you can do is just invest a lot in it. Maybe personal coaching to improve that, and so that you can beat the AI.
And that's where we're talking about learning the game, right? And how to play the game. And that system, Quincia, that we were talking about, you could practice in the AI video interview, and it gives you feedback to say, this is where you rated on eye contact. This is where you rated on communication that the system understood. This is where you rated on the content of your answers. And so understanding, okay, this works well, this doesn't work well, this works. And so trying to practice it as much as you can, whether it's in that system or other systems, unfortunately, is one of the ways to support. But yes, we're having conversations about how how does AI supplement and not replace the human component of interviewing and trying to talk to industry as a profession in a field, that these considerations need to happen?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's being said. I think the theme is we have to start learning how to use this in our day-to-day life, right? I think there is a bias problem for sure, 100%. I agree with that, right? I also think whether it's policy from organizations or the federal government and state and local governments, there is legislation in flight right now to figure out how AI organizations are going to be held accountable, right, for some of this stuff. Elon Musk, I mean, if you're listening to the news, he's waving his flag. Everyone, you guys need to start figuring out how to mitigate some of this stuff, right? So, I mean, I don't think this is an overnight fix, right? I think, people are aware, people are trying to fix it, but there are capacity problems, there are, volume problems, and some of these solutions are going to be out there to do it. What I would argue, right, is with generative AI, there are ways to allow, for communication to occur better with some of the AI models that are accepting and more native to folks, right? Like, I have seen real life examples of how some of the organizations, if their customers are speak a different language, for example, it auto translates it for the person receiving the other end of the communication from a human perspective, and then so someone speaking, for example, in Hindi, and then needs to, the recipient needs to listen, or the agent needs to listen in English. It's auto-translating it in real time, and that it's like, in the Star Wars world where there's an auto-translator and they're talking in different languages. That's becoming more and more a reality. So what I would love to see in some, your example with those organizations, how we can influence those organizations to use AI for good, help them solve the capacity problems, but making sure that they're also, accounting the bias aspect. So, it's not figured out. I would encourage you to not get discouraged, encourage you how to learn the game or figure out how to make it part of your daily life so you do learn how to use these tools and adapt to them, because adaptability is going to be huge. But I would not be surprised in the coming years if there's a shift in terms of how these are used from a legality standpoint.
Any other questions before we wrap up? Oh, I'm so sorry.
My question is to Mr. Batra. You said that Accenture is aware that generative AI techniques are being used for writing cover letters or stuff like that. So it's quite easy, at least from the text-based perspective, to detect these models. My question is, how does it help or hurt an applicant's recruitment process if you, as a recruiter, are aware that an applicant is using these technologies?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a recruitment expert by any means, right? I mean, we are aware that, we're getting applications that are suddenly have perfect English, right? There's models that we can use, and we use that, to sift out, right, from an applicant standpoint. At the end of the day, right, what we're saying from a workforce perspective is, do you have the adaptability to use the technology, but also can have the soft skills to talk to clients and, work with clients? So it's not figured out. I will tell you that. What I will tell you is, it's important to know about the technologies, use the technologies, but in this given moment where we're sitting in this room and it's the year 2023, still be authentic, right? Because I think organizations are still looking for that, and they're still trying to figure out how to use this. But until it's accepted widely, I would not just bust through 50 job applications because I can use Gen AI now. That's not the right answer, in my opinion.
And they're going to be able to see through that once you get to the later phases of the interview process, right? That you don't have the written communication skills maybe they were seeking when you send that thank you email or whatever it might be. And Avik was talking about the skills still needed, and that's where critical thinking comes in, is to understand when and when you should not be using those tools. And those are circumstances where you should not be using those tools in order to show your authentic, genuine self.
What are your thoughts on using these technologies in, like, more heavily, so to speak, in the first phase as opposed to the later phases of recruitment process?
Can you repeat that question back in your answer?
I can try. Thank you, Mackenzie. That's a good point. So she had asked I'll try to paraphrase this. What is advice for using it early on in the stage to help kind of move you along, essentially? Okay, yes. So I think in the formatting and kind of the resume piece, that makes sense, is understanding, okay, is my style that I have on this resume going to speak to these applicant tracking systems where they have these AI readers reading it? Is it clean? Is the formatting correct so that it can read it? Is some of the language correct that it may pick up on? But then when you think about the cover letter, that piece that's supposed to show your personality and your communication skills, that's definitely a part where you need the genuine piece, right? And to show your capabilities and your competencies. And that's what they're going to see through more. But when you think about actually kind of the technical part of your resume being picked up, or maybe it's the formatting of your cover letter, you can, I think, and you can get ideas for some of these technologies for your cover letter, but I think it still needs to be genuinely you. And then your resume and the formatting and such and the technicalities, you can use the system, and that's what we've been helping students do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with it. I would also argue, if you really want a job, figure out how to make a human connection with somebody at the company. I mean, it comes down to that, right? Like, don't all come to me and say I need a job, but like, what I'm saying is that, like, you know, if I really wanted to work at Tesla, or if I really wanted to work at, Carnival Cruises, like, figure out a way to, like, find somebody find a mentor, find somebody that's in the industry to, like, make that human connection, because the volume that is coming through is people are trying to figure out the volume problem, and it's to me you got to learn how. It's like learning the game. Do that piece of it, but also figure out, okay, how am I going to go make myself known to get some attention? I mean, I think it comes down to that, but I'm one person, I think.
No, it is multi-layered.
Yep.
Hi. So we talked a lot about how AI will get rid of personal bias, but there's still technical bias. But since AI is human-made, I would say that it's very difficult to completely get rid of human bias through AI. So I guess I'm wondering, like, what are your thoughts on that, and how do you see that evolving in the future, since AI is, like, relatively new, at least in prevalence, I guess?
So there's an entire research area in artificial intelligence that focuses on removing bias from a system. And there's an area now focused on, related to bias, fairness. So this is an active research area. Given the use of AI in various domains that this would be extremely important, say national security, criminal justice. There's a lot of interest in developing ways to reliably evaluate whether or not a system has bias. Is it operating ethically? Is it operating fairly? I think I'm hopeful, because of that research and that focus, that it's going to bring in a new era of AI such that it won't be as it is right now, where it's basically just a wild, wild west, where people say this is accurate and let's go ahead and use it without any thought of the repercussions of actually using it. So I say all this to say that this is something that's being looked at, and I think that government is now starting to develop policies where this is something that is going to be considered. One of the big questions is accountability. So let's say you're applying for a position and you did everything right, and for whatever reason the AI decides that you don't get the job. Now, if the company relied completely on AI and the recruiter blindly accepted the recommendation of the AI, who's accountable? So if you want to file a lawsuit, do you file a lawsuit against the AI, or do you file a lawsuit against the company? Who takes responsibility? So these types of things are things that are being looked at right now. I think all I can really say at this time, it's being looked at. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have time for one more? Do we have one more question? All right. And then we will wrap up in just a few moments, so this might be a brief question.
I was just going to ask, you work at the Career Connection Center, correct? Have you heard of any kind of students using it to research companies to an extent? And I'll give you an example because I noticed for the career fair, you had 363 companies listed, but there wasn't really a way to filter by industry or like headquarter location. So I found a way to like scrape all the companies, put in an Excel, and then throw that into ChatGPT and ask for each industry from that and kind of filter it that way myself. And you can do it by like headquarter location as well too, and then filter it out and see domestic companies as well. But I was just curious if you'd heard of any kind of students filling in gaps that they're missing maybe that way.
Well, I definitely want to talk to you afterwards, please. That's amazing. I will say, yes, we had filters, so sorry if you didn't determine how to find them, or that we didn't educate you how to find them. As far as researching companies, I have not heard, but I would love to hear ideas of maybe if you have ideas or if others out there, how we can support you and some of the things that you think you could leverage AI for in researching the organizations. That would be fantastic. But no, so I'm excited to hear that that's kind of happening in the space with students in that way.
Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Please join me in a round of applause for our panelists. So just to give you a brief idea of what's next, we do have lunch in the hallway. You're welcome to enjoy that after this session. We'll resume at 12:30. Next door, outside, there should be a sign that says Session 1, and that session will be on leveraging Quincia, improving your resume with AI, and we will be in that room until 4 p.m. With different sessions going on. We'll resume in this room at 1 o'clock p.m. With a session on generative AI trends in the market, a comprehensive overview for all, and we will be in this room with concurrent sessions until 4 p.m. And we welcome our students to join us next door in session 3 starting at 2 p.m. with our AI Ready Station, where you can join us to get quick feedback on how to fine-tune your resume for this digital age, take professional headshots, and network with industry and campus organizations. Thank you, everybody.